Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our Let's Talk About It. And today I'm really excited. We have Laura Langsdorf with us, and it's going to be a really interesting topic we're going to talk about today. Laura is a brand new author, but she's also an established businesswoman. She is very creative. She's I always like to, when I talk to my team about Laura, I always describe her as very out of the box. And I love that. I love dealing with people that just know how to challenge the norms. And so we're going to talk a little bit about a project that she's working on right now that is definitely challenging the norm. So welcome, Laura, to our podcast today.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you, Kimberly. I love working with you and your team. It's just so fun and just so professional. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. So I just want you to first tell us a little bit about who you are. Give us a little bit about your background, just so we can learn a little bit more about you before we jump into your new project.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting trying to describe yourself and where you've been and what you've done. I'm a middle-aged, I hate to say that, middle-aged lady. We can all, appreciate that, I guess, although still feel like that 18-year-old in my
Yes.
heart inside. But I've owned a marketing firm for over 25 years, so I've had all the business experience. So that's, this ever evolving world of marketing, as you know, and your team knows, it's constantly changing. It's been very challenging, but exciting too.
Yeah.
So I love that part of what I do. I've been recently remarried. I have two stepdaughters and I have a son of my own. So, that's cool. Kids, they're challenging too. So yeah, challenging. And I'm sitting here in Ohio and it is Snowmageddon. And we just recently moved back from Arizona. So my husband's not super happy about all this. He'd rather be, in the sunshine, but here we are. Our kids are starting families. We already have two grandsons and another one on the way. So yeah.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you. So life is exciting. And then I started this project, but the project I started about 20 years ago, which is kind of funny. My book, which you guys all know about, it's called Don't Pee in My Dating Pool. Yeah. The title came from a family reunion. So my cousin and I were talking. I was just recently got divorced, and I started the process in 2001 and was divorced finally in 2002. So I've been, single-ish for quite a long time. And my cousin said, ew, what's the dating pool like? He goes, I hope nobody pees in it. And I'm like, being that creative person that, my background's in journalism and writing and everything. And I'm like, this could be a good book. I thought I would only be out there dating for a couple years. And then, Prince Charming would come along and I would get remarried and have a couple more kids. And who knew it'd be a almost 2-decade-long journey.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I know the project is you writing the new book, but how did you get from being the marketing executive and doing this over here to pivoting to wanting to write about your dating journey?
Over the years, I just would tell my friends stories, and a lot of them would just die laughing, or they would be, chin on the ground. What? That did not happen. Yeah. So I just started randomly taking notes. Yeah. I kind of had the book title and then I would take notes, and I would even, be on a blind date. And when they left or I got home, I would write it down on a napkin, what happened. I mean, I had this file folder full of notes just on scraps of paper, on bar napkins, on whatever. And I just kind of kept track of what the situations were that happened. And when I started looking over the notes, I thought, wow, oof. To share my journey, one, I thought it was going to be a lot funnier. Some of it is funny, some of it's not so funny, some of it's kind of sad, and some of it's like, oh, Laura, why did you do that? But I'm a very honest, what you see is what you get person. Right. And so when people were saying to me, why are you writing this book, especially now social media trolls and all that stuff, I said, and I'm sure you can understand this, you know, being a woman, it's like nobody's going to judge me more harshly than I judge myself.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, we always judge ourselves so harshly, but I felt like I thought it was going to be funny.
Mhm.
So I thought, oh, this is going to be funny. I'm going to tell a funny story. And then when I really started getting into it, I'm like, boy,
Yeah.
I think this can resonate with people. You know, some of the situations that I was in where I, you know, say I was too thirsty, you
Yeah.
know, I didn't want to be alone. I was lonely. So maybe I was reaching too
Yeah.
much, you know, or, you know, I talk a lot about deal breakers, knowing that I was dating somebody who had a huge red flag deal breaker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I was like, I'm still going to date them because they're so cute or they're funny or they're smart, but they got this deal breaker. And it's like, that's not going to work, you know, no matter
And
how hard.
that's what I love about it because it is very raw and it's very real. And I guess, one of the things that I would love for you to share a little bit, like for that person watching right now that says, okay, I'm not comfortable sharing my personal stuff out there. I'm not comfortable sharing my journey. But on the other end, they really would like to. How did you get to
Yeah.
the place of sharing such raw information? Because I've read the book, obviously. And so I know that you go all in. So you really shared
Whoops.
some really great but the thing is that as a woman, I did relate to that, and it's
Yeah.
something that I feel is going to be very unique on the market, anyways, because you don't really see too many of the real stories. You hear more often about, yeah, I had a bad date, he dropped me, he texted me goodbye, some of those kind of
Yeah.
things, but not so much the way that you're telling, like the details of the situation. So how did you get to that point to feel comfortable in doing that?
You know, everybody's like, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. I am probably the least comfortable in my own skin. So I think it's pretty ironic
Yeah.
that I'm just like, here it is. You know, this is the truth. This
Mhm.
is, you know, there's some embroidery here and there, as my mother would like to say. You might have embroidered here or there. I definitely protected some people, and
Mhm.
you know, obviously some of it's my own recounting,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm old, so I'm just going to use that as an
You're not
excuse, right?
you're not old.
I think you just when you really I like to have a conversation. I like to have a dialogue and I want to be authentic and I was vulnerable. And I do think that there needs to be more of that out there. There's so much, you know, like I talk about on social media when my son was younger, and I said, you only see the very, very high and the very, very low. I said, most of us live in the in between. So I wanted to show you like this is real. This
Right.
is me. This is who this is. This isn't like I'm gonna airbrush and you
Mhm.
know paint this picture that's not real, and I just wanted it to be that raw, you know,
Mhm.
and people who have read excerpts and people who know me say it sounds like you. I can hear your voice. I can hear somebody's voice just talking to me, so it's more conversational, more dialogue, but you know I can't say that I'm not a little concerned.
Well, I think that's the thing that I think is the beauty of what you're doing is because you're putting so much out there, and so you're gonna have people that are gonna really, really embrace it, and then you may have some people that might feel like, okay, this is a little bit much,
Yeah,
But I think
yeah,
the audience that it needs to be in front of will find themselves there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let me ask you, what have you learned the most about your dating journey? Like, if you had to say, Kim, my top three things that I really learned about who Laura is in my 20 years of dating is what?
I learned that I wasn't as patient as
Mm,
I wish I had been.
okay.
You know, there were a lot of times where I tried to race to the end.
Mm,
I got myself in some situations where I was like, you are lucky you got out of that one, girlfriend, because your radar was not going. You know, and some of those stories I shared, and some of them I have not. But,
mm,
you know, there were times where I think we all miss the warning signs.
mm.
And I want people to understand that you don't need to be ashamed of that. You don't need to be beating yourself up about some of that stuff, because I'm just, you know, so well known for beating myself up about stuff. And
Yeah,
that's the other thing. I'm like, why am I beating myself up about this? This is life.
exactly.
It's a journey, and I'm trying to learn,
Yeah.
you know, figure my way through. I never thought that I was going to be, you know, in my early 30s and divorced and, you know,
Mhm.
single-ish, you know, up
Right.
until my 50s. It was like, wow, you know, this is not what I expected life. You know, I went to school, I graduated, went to college, graduated, got married, got the house, had the baby, and then all of a sudden here I am.
They've changed. Yep. Yeah.
And I was sitting at dinner last night with my husband, and there were three gals sitting, they were talking, and they were talking about estrogen and dating and all this stuff. And I thought, God, this is exactly what they need to see and hear. You know, that this is real. This is the conversation you're going to have with your girlfriends.
Right,
you know, this is something that, you know, yeah, people are going to be surprised.
They're going to love it. They're going to, I think, you know, well, let me ask this before I say this one thing. What do you hope people will gain from reading the book?
You know, I really hope that they will maybe see some of themselves or see some of their friends in this, because I have a lot of married friends and they had no idea what I was going through. And, you know, like I said to you earlier, they're like, well, just go to the grocery store. You can find a guy anywhere on the shelf. No. And, you know, it's so personal, as you know, relationships are very personal and you have to find the right match for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's different. Yeah. No, but I love that, because, you know, I think that's the thing that people are going to be saying, okay, so I'm reading all her stories. What can I gain from it? But I know that you are also taking it a little bit further too. It's not just a book. So share with us a little bit about the other components, because like for you, it's not just sharing your stories. You really want to help women examine themselves in this process. So share a little bit about how that's going to look like.
So in the book, I do kind of say, here's a lesson I learned, or here's a nugget of wisdom, or something like that. And if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, move on to the next story, because that one may appeal to you or may resonate with you more. But when I was going through the book, I had somebody suggest to me, you know, I started treating my business or my dating like a business. And they're like, wow, you know, that's kind of different. And I thought, well, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I get focused and fine-tuned instead of, you know, I like to say I just went out there willy-nilly, you know, like, whoo, here I am, what's going to happen? But the more fine-tuned I got, the more focused I got, the better, I want to say, the results were. The partners or the people that I chose to date, once I got more focused, were closer to what I really wanted as a long-term partner. So when I wrote the book, and then I went through and I said, all my years of business and marketing experience, I think I can take somebody through a journey and help them create their own actionable roadmap. You know, it's something that takes you from, why are you dating? And that's a huge thing. Like, why are you dating? I mean, there are a lot of people who are like, I don't ever want to get remarried again. You know, so, okay, so why are you dating? You want to have somebody you can go to a movie with or to dinner with or something like that? Or do you want that forever? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to just, like I say, have better sex? You know, like, who are you looking for? I mean, get real and say what you're trying to accomplish, because then that's what you're going to attract. You know, I myself wrote on the front and the back of a legal size paper, I don't know how many pages, what I was looking for. And you're not going to get it all. But you have to know what you're looking for. So many times you say, well, I know what I don't want. I don't want this. Well, you attract that inevitably.
Exactly. I have that in my That is very true. It's very true. And because it's familiar, you tend to go right back into the same cycle again.
Oh, exactly. But the workbook really takes you through your why, your mission, your vision, you know, your unique selling proposition, like all the way through that, who your primary demographic is, meaning who's that person that really would be your ideal. You know, and I laugh and I say mine was Richard Gere, because, you know,
okay.
I mean, who don't like a little Richard Gere? I mean, he's aging pretty good too. So anyway. So, you know, just think about all those things that you want. And then it takes you through a budget section, which I think is super important.
Yes.
You know, I kind of hesitated on putting it in there. And I thought, wow, you know, with all the dating apps, I mean, coffees and dinners and concerts, I mean, whatever your thing is, I mean, all of those things cost. You know, and it's not just, you know, what I'm really hoping to do is to help save somebody resources. And that's not just money. It's time, it's effort, it's emotion, it's energy, it's all of that, resources. I mean, how many times have you just been exhausted by dating somebody and you're like, I shouldn't have dated them anyway. Why did I waste all this time and effort and, everything else. So I'm really hoping to get people focused and fine-tuned
Okay.
into thinking like, this is my plan.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody asks you, your girlfriends, whatever friends, they're always trying to fix you up and
Right,
everything.
right.
Like, that's not going to be my person, because here's my mission statement. Here's my vision statement, you know, and you know yourself best, and you know yourself
Yes.
now, because people say, well, you used to do that, you do this, you do that. That's not me now, or that's not who my future self is or who I want to be. So I think you really have to think yourself. I mean, great advice is wonderful, but know who you are. And it really takes you through that process of figuring out who you are and who you want as a partner.
And I think that's going to be the biggest difference of the book, because even when someone reads it, they're going to see the progression of your growth, from when, like, and I know you didn't share all stories, but, but you can still see the progression of how you went from this to that over here, and how you were able to really get to a place, because you can see when you started to fall in love. You can see when you had those really, I would say, meaningful relationships. When you start kind
Yeah.
of going through the book, you can see the transition of who you are. So let me ask you this. If someone is like listening to this or even like looking at the book, how do they know that book is for them? Like, who is the book actually for?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I've had all kinds of people reviewing,
Mm-hmm.
excerpts. I've had men, I've had women, I've had singles, I've had people who have been married for 50 years. I've had a real mishmash of demographics of people who
Yeah.
have read the book, or read excerpts, and they've all said that they've gleaned some kind of understanding or knowledge or insight into either themselves,
Yeah.
because they see a story and they can relate, or
Mm-hmm.
their single friends who they've never, they haven't been single since they were 18 years old, and they're in their 50s or 60s, and they can say, wow, now I get what all my girlfriends were going through. So I can't really say that it is for somebody or isn't for somebody. The only thing that I can say is that it's real, it's honest, it's not flowery. We're not sitting down the babbling brook and going here or there. It's like a conversation, it's like a dialogue, it's just real and out there. So if you're really into, you know, other types of formats, then maybe, what do I keep telling you guys? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm more like a bitter cup of black, straight up coffee.
No, she is not. She is honest, but you know what? She's everybody's cup of tea. No. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But you know what? I do like something you mentioned, and I think this is something that I feel personally one of the most valuable pieces outside of the workbook and the personal work is that when you share your story and you're honest and you're working on yourself, people understand you better, and then they can
Yeah.
accept a little bit differently. Because I know so many women who are single sometimes feel judged because they're dating, and from their married friends or people who are in a committed relationship, they're feeling that sense of judgment, or they're feeling that sense of pressure. Like,
Yeah.
why are you not making this decision, or what have you? And I think reading it from both sides of it, they can have a better understanding that it's not that easy. You're dealing with people that may be Trojan horses. They come in one way and then they unpack and unload, and you're like, oh, okay. Did not see any of that coming. And I've had a couple of those before too in the past. Like, Jesus, I did not see that coming. But
What?
and then there's that pressure of people who can put that on you. So I think it's helpful from that standpoint too, to realize that it's a very personal thing, not just from the romantic side of it, but it's, in my opinion anyways, when you're dating and you're putting yourself out, there's a vulnerability. There's your maybe your personal issues can rise up too if someone rejects you or
Yeah.
accepts you or cheats on you. All these different things come up, and you cover so much of that in the book through your own story and the lessons you've learned, that I feel like it can get people around a little bit more of a thought process to not judge, maybe
Yeah.
ask questions, or just maybe take
Yeah.
into consideration that, hey, this person's going through something right now, so they're dating in a different way that you may not agree with, but it doesn't require judgment.
I
So I think
love
it
that.
covers all that. Yeah, I think you
I
really.
love that you said that,
Mhm. Yeah.
because people don't realize when you are dating that you are going through different things in your own life that may make you make different decisions that you may not necessarily have made previously or in the future, but you're going through, I mean, I had a young child.
Yeah.
Nobody met my kid.
Mm.
Nobody met my kid. I saw somebody out that I had dated for a few years, and my son's like, oh yeah, there's your friend. I said, you know, I dated him for like 3 years. He's like,
What?
what?
Yeah.
What? Because my, co-parenting situation was such that it was like every other weekend. So when I did not have him,
Yeah.
I was out doing my personal things,
Right.
going out and having fun with my friends or dating or doing whatever. But,
Mhm.
now that I'm older and I can be more 24/7,
Yeah. Yeah.
with different things. But, I had certain rules and I look back and think, well, was that really something I should have had or not had?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the funny thing too, and I think again you hit on something else I want to point out. I think that's a big thing for so many people when we think back, is not to judge what we walk through,
Yeah.
because they develop who you are. Like I said, your book is a beautiful like you can see the progression of how you started and some of the stories in between to when you can tell you're feeling differently, you're falling in love, you're going through loss, and all these different things is a totally different Laura as you kind of go through
Yeah.
the book. And I think, all those experiences shaped you now, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because I do look back and I do think like, oh, gosh, my mom's going to read this.
yeah. Like, oh
Mom,
no.
please don't read this. But you're right, and my husband and I have had a lot of conversations because it is vulnerable, it is raw. And I did ask him, you know, how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? And he's like, you are the person today that you are because of everything that you went through.
Yeah.
And that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
There are things that I look back and I said, I wish I wouldn't have done, or darn it, I lost an opportunity and I really wished I would have done that.
Yeah.
And I think that that is part of what the book is. It's part of like, oof, you know,
Exactly.
I wish I wouldn't have done it, but I did. And I learned. And I wish I would have done more. And I think that's what I try to encourage people to. If there's an opportunity, take it.
Yeah.
Just say yes. Yes, I'm going to do that. Yes, I'm going to try that. Yes, I'm going to,
Yeah.
go zip lining or whatever it is that
Right.
scares the heck out of me, but I did it anyway.
Exactly.
you
Now
know,
you can say you tried it.
I did. My
Yeah.
heart was out of my chest and my veins were popping, but I did it.
No, but I love that. And I think that's the important thing. So okay, so to kind of wrap up a little bit, tell us a little bit where they can find you, what they can be expecting, because I know it's not just a book. I know this is much
Yeah.
more for you, a platform you're building out. So share this a little bit about
Yep.
that.
Yep. So, I've got the book, I've got the
Mhm.
workbook, and I always feel like the book kind of gives you a little bit of credibility.
Yes.
And people say, you're no PhD, you're no MD or anything like that. Well,
Yeah.
20 years experience. I'm like, I think I got it.
A little
I
bit.
think I got some experience here, people to share. So I'm going to do that. I've really thought and talked with some people about doing a dating app,
Mhm.
based around this business model, like how to treat your dating like a business.
Yeah.
And I've had some interest in that. So maybe that's in the future.
Yeah.
I'd love to help women. I don't know whether that's going to come in the form of speaking or,
Mhm.
some of breaking down some of this workbook and helping lead people through that, either, one-on-one or as a community or something like that. I'm on social media,
Mhm.
the dating splash. So, Instagram and Facebook. And we've got some Twitter going on in there too. I'm not as familiar with Twitter, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah.
And my website,
Mhm.
thedatingsplash.com.
Yeah.
So, if you want to reach out to me, I'd love to talk to you. I love having conversations with
Yeah.
real people. So I'm happy to do that. Happy to, start building a community where people can just throw things out there and say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. What do
Mhm.
people think? What do you, what would your advice or what would you be telling me, if I
Right.
were sitting in your shoes, those type of things. So, I am building the platform. It's
Mhm.
coming together. It's slow,
Mhm.
but the book and the workbook really are the cornerstone and the foundation of all of this. So you can find me on Amazon. Don't pig my dating pool
Yeah.
and on my website and all that good stuff, right?
Yes. Well, I'm going to encourage everyone to definitely plug in because I know that you have so many amazing things that you're going to be working on, and I would say probably over the course of the year, and so
Yeah,
it's a great way to kind of plug in, especially if you're someone that is tired of your dating pool being peed in. You want to do something different. You want to grow a little differently. And, I think Laura's the perfect person to plug into because she's honest and you're real and you're not afraid to say, hey, this is what I went through. And I think if we could be around more of that, we won't feel the
yeah,
need to pretend or feel the
yeah,
need to present something that we're not. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely will encourage everyone to plug into what you're doing. So
Thank you. Thank you
you're
so much. It's
welcome.
so sweet of you to say that. And you've read it, so you know.
Yes, that's why I can definitely stand behind that. I said, I really think this is a really great book for someone. So let me ask you, is there any closing thoughts you want to share before we close out?
I just went through this journey and, I always like to laugh about this because I'm like, well, what happens if I don't sell any books? And what happens if I don't do this? And I don't know because I'm that perfectionist, that A-type personality. What's next? What's next? What's next?
Mm.
And I think the thing that was the most endearing and softened my heart the most was my son. And he said, you know, you've been talking about this book for 20 years, Mom. And
Mm.
he's going to be 25 next week. And he's
Wow.
like, you've been talking about this for
Yeah.
20 years. He goes, who cares how it's received at all? You wrote the book
Yeah.
and it will hit the people that it's supposed to land on, you know?
Yeah.
He said, so just put it out there and let it go.
Oh, but I like that though, because I think sometimes we do get so bogged down into like what ifs and is it going to be successful?
Yeah,
And a lot of times when we just kind of put it out there, people are going to gravitate where meant to gravitate. He is so
yeah,
right.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
love
So
that.
wisdom of the youth, right?
Yes. Well, we'll take it because I mean it's definitely that makes total sense. It
Yeah,
does.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for
Oh,
joining us
thank you.
today.
Thank
So
you so
everyone,
much, Kimberly.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I want to encourage everyone to definitely go to the website, thedatingsplash.com, where you'll be able to get the book, the workbook, and hear all the great things that she's going to be doing. And more importantly, sign up for her newsletter. So that way you can stay plugged into any upcoming news and information she has to share with you. So thank you for joining us again on Let's Talk About It.
Thank you. Have a good one.